It's the International Soccer Preview. We are Soccer Files Canada. Welcome to Series 32, looking at the players of the 2026 FIFA World Cup. This episode is looking at the players of Spain, Part 2, the selections. Here we go. Hello and welcome to the International Soccer Preview by Soccer Files Canada. I'm Kevin, and this is a continuation on Series 32 of the players of the 2026 World Cup. This episode is part 2 of our coverage of Spain's players. The final roster is released and we're looking at the selections. In part 1, we compiled a list of players and their likelihood of reaching the final squad. That was based mostly on their participation over the last 2 years, and we considered a few other factors as well. We also gave some biographical and career information on the players to help you to get to know them better. In part 2 here, our focus is on the selections, especially the final selections, because there was no preliminary squad for Spain. Before we go on, we're going to talk a little bit about the mediacast series that we're doing here. We're not sure we're going to complete all 48 teams before the Cup, so we're going to make a few changes. Firstly, we're going to delay on the remaining CAF and CONCACAF teams. That's the African and North American regions. We covered Ivory Coast, Tunisia, Egypt, Senegal, Algeria, and Congo DR, all just 6 months ago for the 2025 African Cup, and Curacao less than a year ago for the 2025 Gold Cup. So we've done other teams in those regions, but for those teams, we have to put them to the end. But you can check those fairly recent media casts on our back catalogue using the addresses on the screen or in the show notes. Also, after Group E, we're going to start publishing parts 1 and 2 together for those teams, because the squads have been released for those. All right, on with the show here. This media cast is divided into 3 sections. In section 1, we have a fairly quick section with just some more preliminary information on the team, or information on the team. Section 2 is the main part of the media cast here. We're going to review the list that we compiled in part 1, and we'll tell you who made the preliminaries and the final squad. Check that, just the final squad for Spain here. And we also tried to predict starters. So we're going to look at the lineups for the 2026 games that we didn't cover in part 1, and we hope that will help us with it. Finally, in section 3, we're going to do several summaries. The first is a spotlight review. That's just a quick run through the players, kind of putting together all the names that we've thrown out in part 2. That's also going to be a short version of the media cast as well. And we have a couple of other things to summarize: surprise selections, non-selections, new players, injuries, and big names off the squad there. All right, let's jump right into section 1. And again, just a fairly quick look at the squad. Here, teams were allowed to bring 26 players to the tournament. Most teams did, but you didn't have to. 23 to 26. Spain bought 26. Sorry, I'm a bit of trouble with my lips there. Spain bought 26, and no preliminary squad was announced there. Before we move on to section 2 then and see who those players are, let's take a look at the games played in 2026 that we did not cover in section 1. So I'm actually going to reverse the order of business here. And yes, there was supposed to be what's called a finalissimo in Qatar there in March 27th. March 27th in Qatar. The winners of the regional contests were supposed to play. So they were supposed to play Argentina. But because of the trouble in the area there, that was cancelled. And instead, on March 27th, they ended up playing well, they played two games in Spain. The first on March 27th against Serbia. I just see that I have put that as a loss, but it's a win. 3-0 win over Serbia there. And then on March 31st, also in Spain, a tie with Egypt. We don't care about the results, actually. We're just interested in the starting lineups for those games and helping us to predict starters. They have a couple of other games coming up. In section one, I think, or sorry, in part one, they only had a June 7th game scheduled with Peru in Mexico. They've now added a game on June 4th, so 3 days earlier, also in Mexico, where they will be playing Iraq. So two fairly weak teams, I would say Iraq and Peru, but Iraq can be quite stubborn there. So kind of interesting choices. Anyway, we won't have any lineups for those games. So that's what we have for recent games. Let's summarize what we said in part one about formations. So Spain's usual formation, in fact, they only used two, and it was a 4-3-3 in 10 out of 16 games. That's about 63% of games, almost two-thirds. And then a 4-2-3-1 in the other third, or 37% of games. So you can envision Spain in those formations. We did a quick analysis on this and came up with the following. It's always a two-man central defense, so two central defenders with a right back and a left back, and it's always a single forward. They have not used either a three-man central defense or a two-man forward line. But let's take a look at the March games to see if there's any change to that. And for formations, we have the 4-2-3-1 formation in both cases. So that actually brings it closer to 50%, 50-50 for each of the formations there. That's it. We've done our business in section one. We're going to move on to section two, the main section of the mediacast, and see who made our squad. So here we have the list that we created in section one, and we're going to use it to kind of go through. So manager Luis de la Fuente, no change there, so we will consider him to have been selected for the final squad. There, let's move on to goalkeepers, and we have two definite candidates here: Unai Simon, who was selected, and David Raya, also selected for the squad. However, our likely candidate, Alex Romero, was not selected for the squad. We suggest a reason for that coming up here. The only other candidate we had on our list was at the seemingly off the squad level, Robert Sanchez, and he was not selected for the squad. However, we have a new candidate, Joan Garcia, and he was selected for the squad. So we're going to introduce him because we didn't meet him in part one. He is a new goalkeeper, not actually that young, 25 years old, with no caps for the national team, but apparently had a very good season with Barcelona in Spain, and he's been with them since 2025, with Espanyol in Spain before that for 4 years, and was called up. We'll have to see if he was called up in March there. He, for some reason, was on our radar. No, he wasn't. He wasn't part of part one. Sorry, I'm talking to myself. Anyway, so it looks like Joan Garcia has replaced Alex Romero. Basically, Romero gives way to the rising star that is Joan Garcia. So there we have it, just competition among the very talented players that Spain has. Okay, so a new player. Let us talk about the starting position a little bit. Well, Simon was injured, Unai Simon injured for the first 6 games. So David Raya largely took over there. I think Alex Romero did get one start. there. But Raya was always a backup, and when Unai Simon was fit, he was back in the starting role. So pretty straightforward as far as starters go. I want to look, though, and see if there's any changes in the March game. And in the first one, we do have Unai Simon starting. In the second one, David Raya starts. But I wouldn't think that constitutes a challenge to Unai Simon's starting position. So we are going to give Unai Simon 3 stars as a definite starter. And that's it. I'm even reluctant to give David Raya 1 star as a starter. I will give him first backup role, and even that with Jean Garcia coming in so hot may not be the case. So perhaps David Raya's second string keeper role under threat there. Okay, that is the goalkeeper situation. Let's move on to defenders and central defenders. Again, always a 2-man central defender formation. We had no candidates at the definite level, actually. But we had Aymeric Laporte at the likely level. If you didn't listen to part 1, you may be surprised by that, but we do give all of our reasoning for this in part 1. Aymeric Laporte was selected for the squad. The second candidate, Robin Lenormand, not selected for the squad. Let's talk about that. He did recover from his injury, actually. He had a severe injury with Atletico Madrid that didn't rule him out of the Cup, but definitely caused problems over the course of the season. He was out for 6 games for the national team with this injury, but he has recovered and has been playing regularly with Atletico Madrid, but not starting as much for his club. So it seems like he's recovered his fitness, but not his form. Robin Lenormand, and with the talent that Spain has, other players have come and basically taken his World Cup spot here. The third of the likely candidates was Pau Cubarsí, and he was selected for the squad. And then the fourth of the likely candidates, Dean Huijsen, not selected. So that also is a bit of a surprise. He had been injured earlier in the season, but had recovered from that injury. His non-selection is put down to a dip in form, and again the good form of some other players there. So Dean Huijsen not selected. So 2 kind of surprises there, 2 likely candidates not selected. Let's move on. We had a possible candidate in Danny Vivian. He was not selected for the squad, really just played in 2024 quite a bit, but not so much after that. 2 candidates at the seemingly off the squad level, Nacho Fernandez, who was a starter in Euro 2024. He lost his starting position there and didn't appear after the Cup. Nacho Fernandez, and Pau Torres also not selected. He had been seemingly off the squad. We have 2 new candidates, though. Actually, 3 new candidates. Eric Garcia, Marc Pubil, and Christian Mosquera. All 3 of those kind of coming in at the end of the period here. We won't talk about Christian Mosquera because he didn't make the squad, but we will introduce Eric Garcia and Marc Pubil, both of them selected for the final squad. So basically, there are your replacements for Robin Lenormand and Dean Huijsen, presumably these players in good form over the second half of the season. Eric Garcia, not new on our list. He's been around for a while, since 2020, with 19 caps and no goals for Spain. He's 25 years old. He is with Barcelona in Spain since 2021 and was with Manchester City from 2018 to 2021, indeed with their youth club. after spending most of his youth with Barcelona's youth club. So those two clubs kind of figure large in his history. Eric Garcia was selected for Euro 2020 and started a few of the games. Didn't begin as a starter, but games 3, 4, and 6. So got a few starts there. In the World Cup in 2022, he was on the roster but saw no action. And then for the Euro 2024, well, he hadn't appeared after World Cup 2022, so really wasn't a consideration for the national squad, and actually had not appeared since 2022 at all after that. So off the squad for 4 years here, but Eric Garcia making a comeback due to his form. There we go. The other candidate is new on our radar. It's Marc Pubil, and he has no caps for Spain. He's 23 years old, plays for Atletico Madrid since 2025, and a few other teams in Spain, especially Levante there. And new to the squad, having never been selected before being named to the preliminary squad, Marc Pubil. So I'm sure he's back up. We'll see if Eric Garcia gets a start, and that's what we're moving on to, is predicting the starters. Let's go to the March game. No, up until the March games, we would have said Aymeric Laporte as a definite starter and Pau Cubarsí as a likely starter, having basically taken the position from Robin Lenormand. In the March games, that is the starting pair, Cubarsí and Laporte in the first game. In the second game, wow, it looks like Huijsen got a start there. On Mosquera, this seems quite an experimental squad, at least in some of the positions there. Well, Huijsen and Mosquera not making the squad. It's too bad we can't look at the June games to see, because that might give us a better indication. But we're going to stick with what we got there. We're going to give 3 stars to Aymeric Laporte as a definite starter, and 2 stars to Pau Cubarsí as a possible starter. Although it is possible, if Eric Garcia is coming in with good form, he might challenge Cubarsí's starting position there. On we go to left backs here, and on our list we have Marc Cucurella as a definite candidate, and he was selected for the squad. And at the likely level we have Alejandro Grimaldo, who also was selected for the squad. He's sometimes called Alex Grimaldo there. So just the 2 candidates over here, both of them selected. And really the starting discussion is quite short as well. It's Marc Cucurella as a definite candidate. Alex Grimaldo, I wouldn't even say a possible candidate, but more of a backup for the position. I did see him playing further upfield. I think he played as a right attacking midfielder in one game. He does have a few starts over the period there. Anyway, we won't dwell on that. What we'll do is see if there's anything in the March friendlies that suggest a change. And we have Marc Cucurella in the first game and Alex Grimaldo in the more experimental second game. So again, we don't consider that a challenge to Cucurella's starting position, and we're going to give him all 3 stars as the definite starter there. Over to the right back position, no candidates at the definite level. At the possible level, we have Pedro Porro, who was selected for the squad. And Pedro Porro at the likely level there. At the possible level, Marcos Llorente was selected for the squad. We have 2 candidates at the possible but unlikely level. The first one is Danny Carvajal, and he was not selected for the squad. And then a newcomer, Oscar Mingueza, also not selected for the squad there. Um, and seemingly off the squad, Jesus Navas, not selected for the squad. No new candidates here, so that's what we have. Pedro Porro and Danny Carvajal. In terms of starters, well, Danny Carvajal had the position locked up in the past. In the 2024 Euro, he was the starter there. He struggled a lot with injuries over the period. And to make a long story short, Pedro Porro has taken over the position there. And we have Marcos Llorente. What do I have as a possible starter? So right now, Pedro Porro is likely, and Marcos Llorente as possible. I would even say the separation is a bit more Pedro Porro almost definite. But what do we have in the games? Well, in the first game, March game, we have a Llorente starting, and in the second game, a more experimental game, Pedro Porro starting. So maybe that evens things up a bit, maybe puts things back to the way we had them in the first place. So we're going to go with Pedro Porro, 2 stars as a likely starter, and Marcos Llorente, 1 star as a possible starter there. That's it for defense. Let's move on to defensive midfielders. And yes, we have a lot of uncertainty here because of players returning from injury. But let's go through what we had in part one. And we can do defensive and central midfielders together, especially in the 4-3-3 formation. It doesn't make a difference. We have a definite candidate in Martin Zubimendi, and he was selected for the squad. And the other defensive midfielder at the likely level, Rodri, was selected for the squad. The main reason he was likely was his struggle with injuries over the period, which he seems to be over, but we'll talk more about that. Moving on to those coded as defensive midfielders, we have Fabian Ruiz. I'll talk about him. Injuries is really the story here in central defense. So let me first say that defensive midfielder Rodri has recovered from his injury and is available now. Fabian Ruiz here, he was out with a knee injury and an unknown return date. That's what we reported in part one. He returned on April 19th and is back to fitness. He worked his way up to starting games at the end of May there. So Fabian Ruiz seems fully available. Next, we have Mikel Merino, a definite candidate. We also reported on him in part one as an injury. He had been out with out for foot surgery, but he was expected back on June 1st, 2026. Well, he came back earlier than that, returned for the last club game of the season on May 24th and played 28 minutes. However, fitness may be an injury for him. It may need a bit of time to work up to fitness. So we will see. That might be part of the narrative for starters. Next, we have Pedri, actually coded as an attacking midfielder, and we will talk about him a bit up there. But again, 4-3-3 formation, and he appeared in central midfield here, and he has recovered from his injury as well. Pedri a bit injury prone there, but looks available here. So all three of our definite candidates selected. We had none at the likely level, so we go to the possible candidates, 3 of them, and none of them selected. Alex Garcia is the first. Fermin Lopez, we'll talk about in a second, also not selected, and Pablo Barrios, also not selected. The second of those possible candidates is Fermin Lopez, though, and he is a new injury, out of contention with a metatarsal fracture, a foot fracture, from around May 20th, right at the end of the season there, not due back until July 31st. So hard to say how much of a consideration he was, just at the possible level. here. But anyway, that injury, the squad might have been actually selected by the time he actually was injured. So we're not sure. But anyway, that precluded selection nevertheless. And then we have a bit of a surprise. Well, not really. Possible but unlikely candidate Gavi. Again, mostly possible but unlikely because of injury. But he returned to fitness on March 26th and is available for the squad. No new candidates for either position. So let's talk about things here. And without going into too much detail, truly, it seems Rodri, Fabian Ruiz, and Gavi are the main starters, but all of them have been out with injury. Gavi maybe not as truly as Rodri and Fabian Ruiz there, but anyway, in their stead, Mikel Merino, Martin Zubamendi, and Pedri have been deputized basically. However, they've been there for most of the period or a good chunk of the period and may have earned starting positions by now, especially Pedri. So with these players coming back, Rodri and Fabian Ruiz particularly seem likely to take back the starting positions if their fitness is up to level. So a lot of kind of uncertainty about how things are going to be here. Right now, we have Rodri and Fabian Ruiz as likely starters, and the other four, Gavi, Pedro, Zubamendi, and Merino, as possible starters. That's our best guess. And now we look to the March friendlies, and we see in the first one, Rodri and Pedro starters. And in the second one, well, it's just experimental players that I won't even mention. Well, Fornals and Solar, neither of those selected for the squad. And again, I wish we could look at the June games, but you can probably by the time this is out and see how close we are to what the June games say. So we are going to put Rodri and Fabian Ruiz as likely starters, and then we're going to give 1 star to the other 4. We might give 1 star to Pedro as an attacking midfielder. We'll talk about that when we get there. But Martin Zupamendi, Mikel Merino, Pedro, Pedri, and Gavi, all getting 1 star as possible starters. On we go to the left attacking midfield, and here we have no definite candidates, but 2 likely candidates in Nico Williams, who was selected, and Alex Baena, also selected, both of them. And then we had none at the possible level and 2 players at the possible but unlikely level, neither of them selected, Brian Zaragoza and Jesus Rodriguez. Actually, we had reported Jesus Rodriguez as an injury out with a knee problem in part 1 and an unknown return date. It turned out to be just for 1 club game that he was out, and he has been playing for his club since, though not as a starter. But anyway, for the national team, he had been a possible but unlikely candidate in our estimation. So we don't think injury really was the reason for decision. Well, it was basically a non-injury, perhaps phoning in sick for the his Italian team, phoning him in sick for the international period, which they're not really allowed to do. We do have a new candidate over here, though. It's Victor Munoz. In fact, 2 new candidates. The other one is Ander Baranetskaya. That's a difficult name to pronounce. We only have to pronounce it 1 more time, though, to say that he wasn't selected for the final squad, Ander Baranetskaya. And we can focus on Victor Munoz, who was selected for the squad, for the final squad. So a new candidate over here. Let's introduce him. Victor Munoz with Spain since Well, no caps for the national team, actually. Maybe the preliminary squad was his first appearance, or the his naming on the final squad, his first appearance. He's 23 years old, played for Osasuna in Spain since 2025. Prior to that, he had been with Real Madrid in Spain there. Victor Munoz making the cut here. In terms of starters, Nico Williams seems clearly the starter over here. However, he wasn't selected for the last four games. We were right in thinking that wasn't a threat to his being called up to the squad, which we feel quite good about. However, we do think it may represent a challenge to his starting position. The other candidates over here are Alex Baena, who's on the list here, and also out of position players Jeremy Pino and Danny Olmo could start over here. Let's see what happened in the March games. And we have, Alex Baena starting the first one, and then Baronet Thea starting in the second. We did have to say his name again after all. Again, that's a bit of an experimental squad. And Baronet Skea didn't make it to the squad anyway. So, yeah, we're a little uncertain about Nico Williams here. But we're going to still think of him as the likely starter over here. He was selected for the squad after all. And we're going to put Alex Baena as a possible starter there. We'll see if the June games might, well, we won't see because we're doing the media cast now. So, okay, let's go over to right attackers. And here we have a definite candidate in young star Lamine Yamal. I'll have to get used to saying that because I think I'll be saying it for the next 10 or 15 years. We have a likely candidate in Ferran Torres, also selected for the final squad. Our possible candidate, Jeremy Pino, also selected. He kind of plays both wings there. Possible but unlikely, Jorge de Frutos, not selected for the squad. And Pablo Sabiara, seemingly off the squad. Let me try that again. Pablo Sarabia off the squad there, and also not selected. No new candidates over here, so we have the players that we have. We can talk about starters, and basically Lamine Yamal has got to be the default starter. However, he only started about half of the games there. Over the period. In fact, exactly half of the games, 8 out of the 16 games. We think that's because his minutes are being protected because he's young. They don't want to overuse him. Filling in for him has been Ferran Torres mostly, but actually a variety of players. Jeremy Pino, and I do see left back Alex Grimaldo had stepped in here once. Let's look at the March games. It was Lamine Yamal in both of the games there. So the second game not experimental in some of the positions, and so we're going to stick with our thinking that Lamine Yamal is a definite candidate. They won't be protecting his minutes, especially early in the World Cup. So they might a bit as time goes on. But we're really talking about kind of the starting game here. We think Ferran Torres is a possible candidate, maybe here in this position or maybe in another position there. We think Lamine Yamal will be on the field for game one for sure. Okay, let's move on. To central attackers, Danny Olmo is coded as a left attacking midfielder, but we moved him over here and have him as a likely candidate. There's no definite candidate. Danny Olmo was selected. Our possible candidate, Pablo Fornals, was not selected there. And in part one, we talked about the terrible injury problems that Isco has had. part of the reason he was at the possible but unlikely level. In part one, we reported he was still out with an ankle injury and an unknown return date. He did return on April 21st, but has only worked his way up to playing about a half a game. In his last club game of the season, he played 54 minutes, which is the most that he's played since his return. So, yes, I mean, he's been off the team for too long and not up to fitness. So this cup came too early for him there. And then seemingly off the squad, Oyhan Sanset not selected there, and no new candidates. So we only have Danny Olmo over here. Let's talk about the position a bit. 4-3-3, they don't use the position in the 4-2-3-1, which they use slightly less than half of the time. They do use the position. And usually it's Danny Olmo in the position, but we have seen Pedri and Mikel Moreno stepping in there. And what I'm thinking is if the central midfielders, Rodri and Ruiz and Gavi, do come back, that might kind of threaten Danny Olmo's tenuous hold over the position, as Pedri and Mikel Moreno would be kind of candidates for this role. So a little tough to say. Let's see what happened in the March games. We have Fermin Lopez, surprisingly, starting there in the first of the March games. That is the central midfielder who got a foot injury, so he's not selected. He won't be starting there in the Cup. In the second game, the more expected Danny Olmo. So as I said, just some of the positions in that squad experimental. So perhaps Danny Olmo is holding on to the position. So let's make our final guesses here. And we're going to give Danny Olmo, maybe because of what we saw there, 2 stars as the likely starter. But again, this depends on whether they use the position or not. And they might not. We'll give Pedro 1 star there, and Mikel Moreno 1 star there. I'm going to go back and do that because I do actually think they might get mixed out or moved out of their midfielder positions. So as attacking midfielder for Moreno and Pedri. Okay. That's as a central attacking midfielder, by the way. And we are done with the attacking midfield. We move up to forwards here. And here we have a definite candidate in Mikel Oyarzabal, who was selected for the final squad. He's actually coded as a left attacking midfielder, but definitely playing as a centre forward in the second half of this period. And we had Alvaro Morata as a possible candidate, but we boldly put him on the big names off the squad, and it turns out we were right to do so because he was not selected for the squad. So we will revisit him in big names off the squad. Also at the possible level, Samu Agahawa was not selected. He was out with a cruciate ligament injury tear, not due back until October 2026. There's no change in that assessment. In fact, it's the end of October now. That's the expected return date. And then we had Borja Iglesias, the third possible candidate, and he was selected for the final squad. At the possible but unlikely level, Iosi Perez was not selected, and neither were our 2 seemingly off the squad players, Joselu and Gerard Moreno. Joselu did get some starts at the beginning of the period, but last appeared in October 2024 there. A bit surprisingly, no new candidates added here. And so let's take a look at the starting position. Well, this is a fairly straightforward narrative. It was Alvaro Morata in the last Euro Cup and for about a year after, and then an abrupt change from Alvaro Morata to Mikel Oyarzabal, who has basically owned the position since March 2024. It is a bit more complicated than that, actually. A couple of names like Joselu had been tried out in 2024, so it wasn't as straightforward as I say, but pretty much it was. So we have Mikel Oyarzabal as the definite starter here. Not a lot of candidates to choose from. Let's look at the March games and see what we have. Oyarzabal in the first game and scoring 2 goals as well. And in the second game, it is Ferran Torres starting. So we had him as a right attacking midfielder, but he does sometimes start as a forward. So, yeah, I mean, given the lack of backup here, I think we will add Ferran Torres as a possible starter here. Um, I just got to find his name on my list now. Ferran Torres at the possible level, but we're going to put Oyarzabal at the definite level here. We think there's not much doubt about it with the way things look right now. So there we have it. Mikel Oyarzabal with 3 stars. And we'll go back to Ferran Torres and put him as 1 star as forward. Okay, that's it actually, the end of section 2, the end of our look at the players. We're moving on to section 3 now, and here, well, we want to welcome listeners to the short version. We are using this as a short version of the mediacast. We're going to begin with our spotlight review. That's a race through the squad, covering everything that we looked at in more detail in section 2. And we go to the top of our list then, and we begin with the manager, Luis de la Fuente, and he effectively was selected or not dismissed before the tournament there. Next, we have 2 definite goalkeepers, Unai Simon and David Raya, both of them selected for the squad. However, likely candidate Alex Romero, not selected for the squad, effectively replaced by new candidate Joan Garcia, a young player, replaced probably just because his form was better. In terms of start, and by the way, we're not going to talk about players at the possible but unlikely level or below, but if you are watching the YouTube, you can see their names on the list. In terms of starters, we think Unai Simon is the definite starter there. Central defenders, we had none at the definite level, but 4 at the likely level. 2 of them only making it, though, Aymeric Laporte and Pau Cubarsí. And then the other 2 not making it, Robin Lenormand and Dean Huijsen. So some big changes afoot here. Also, possible candidate Danny Vivian did not make it. We have 2 new players coming in, Eric Garcia and Mark Pubil. Still, just 4 players for central defence. That's a bit thin. Nevertheless, let's move on to left backs. We had I got to do our selections, our predicted starters. We think Aymeric Laporte is a definite starter and Pau Cubarsí a likely starter, but we're not dead sure because especially Eric Garcia might challenge Cubarsí's spot there. For left back, we have a definite candidate in Marc Cucurella and a likely candidate in Alejandro Grimaldo or Alex Grimaldo. Both of those were selected for the squad, and we consider Marc Cucurella a definite starter there. Over to the right back, no candidates at the definite level. We have likely candidate Pedro Porro and possible candidate Marcos Llorente. And we will mention Danny Carvajal. He kind of owned the position well in the last Euro Cup and shortly after, but now is at the possible but unlikely level and not selected. So Pedro Porro we consider a likely starter giving him 2 stars, and Marcos Llorente, possible starter, getting 1 star. On we go to the midfield, and we're going to do defensive and central midfielders together. A bit of a narrative here. Let's start with definite defensive midfielder Martin Zubimendi was selected, and likely candidate and captain of the team Rodri, Rodri Hernandez was selected for the squad. And now we look at central midfielders. 3 definite candidates over here: Fabian Ruiz, Mikel Merino, and Pedri, all of them selected for the final squad. And no candidates at the likely level. At the possible level, we had 3 candidates. None of them were chosen, though. Alex Garcia, Fermin Lopez, an injury, a foot injury, but we don't think that was the reason he was not selected. And Pablo Barrios, also not selected. Finally, we have the possible but unlikely Gavi coming back into the squad. Possible but unlikely largely because he had been injured. So we have a bunch of players coming back injured, which is probably why none of our possible candidates were selected. The story over here is that we think the injured players, Rodri, Fabian Ruiz, and to a lesser degree Gavi, are really the starters and coming back to resume their positions, and that Zubimendi and Merino especially were kind of deputizing in their absence. So a little hard to say what's going to happen. It also depends on the fitness of Rodri and Fabian Ruiz, but if they are fit, we think they're likely starters. Otherwise, it'll be the players who have been starting in their absence: Zubimendi, Mikel Merino, and Pedri. We give them 1 star. We also give Merino and Pedri 1 star as attacking midfielders because we think if Ruiz and Rodri are back, those players might move up to an attacking midfield position, a central attacking midfield, and maybe even be the starter there. Possible but unlikely Gavi, we also think is a possible starter. So a lot of uncertainty in the midfield there. Let's move on up to left attackers. No candidates at the definite level. It should have been Nico Williams there, but he missed the last 4 games in October and November, so we had to move him down to likely. Anyway, he was selected, and also the other likely candidate, Alex Baena, not selected. Nico Williams still, though, not starting for the team in the March friendlies. We nevertheless think he's the likely starter. We may be proved wrong there. Alex Baena, also we have him as a possible starter over here. Sorry, I forgot to mention a new candidate we have here, Victor Munoz, selected for the squad there, and we'll have to really wait until the pre-tournament friendlies to see if he gets a start there. Okay, right attackers, we have a definite candidate in Lamine Yamal. Lamine Yamal, and it's just I keep saying Lamine Yamal. I just can blend the sounds together there. And he was selected, of course. Likely candidate Ferran Torres also selected, and possible candidate Yeremy Pino selected as well. So all 3 of our possible candidates or above are selected. In terms of starters, we think Lamine Yamal is a definite starter. Ferran Torres, we think is a possible starter, but also might be a starter as a forward there, and Yeremy Pino, probably more of a bench player there, but ready to come in as a sub or to replace. Central attackers, we had no candidates at the definite level. We moved Dani Olmo, coded as a left attacking midfielder, over here. He's at the likely level, and he was selected. And then we had possible candidate Pablo Fornals, not selected for the final squad there. This position's only used half of the time, and we think Dani Olmo is the likely starter. However, with the changes in central midfield, we think that Mikel Moreno or Pedri might come up here and challenge Danny Olmo's position. It didn't in the March friendlies, though, and so we're not sure, but that might be the case. On to forwards we go. We have a definite candidate in Mikel Oyarzabal, who was selected. Beyond that, we only had three possible candidates. Alvaro Morata, we correctly predicted he wouldn't be selected for this tournament. Samu Agahawa, an injury played a role in his non-selection. Our third possible candidate, though, Borja Iglesias was selected for the final squad. There we go. There's our motorcycle ride through the squad all over. That's called our Spotlight Review. And now we move on to a couple of other summaries. The first one is surprises in the final squad. Well, we had three candidates who we considered likely not selected, largely because of their form. So the first one, goalkeeper Alex Romero, and then we have central defender Dean Huijsen, and also central defender Robin Le Normand. All three of those kind of likely candidates who weren't selected. Unexpected inclusions. Well, we have Gavi, who we had as a possible but unlikely candidate, being selected for the squad. Injury playing a big role in that. And then we have three new players, make that four. We have, first of all, yeah, sorry, I'm just going to reorder them kind of in terms of position here. Goalkeeper John Garcia coming in, basically taking Alex Romero's spot there. And then we have two central defenders added, again, replacing the two central defenders we just talked about who were surprise non-selections. Eric Garcia coming in and Mark Pubil also coming in there. And then finally, we have left attacking midfielder Victor Munoz added to the squad as a new player. So all of those players off our radar in part one, but either new players if their name is in orange there, or returning players in the case of Eric Garcia. Big names off the squad. Well, in part one, I guess it's more of a prediction, not really as clever as I like to think it is. Alvaro Morata, he was at the possible level, but we thought he was off the squad, and that turns out to be the case, as he was not selected for the squad. So a bit of an end of an era there. He was captain of the team and part of many tournaments. We're not going to go into detail, though, on these players. Next, we have Jesus Navas off the squad. He was seemingly off the squad. He really surprisingly returned for the 2024 Euro Cup at 38 years of age and did really well. He had seemed to be off the team before that, so that was a bit of a surprise return. But now he's actually retired from soccer altogether. Jesus Navas. Danny Carvajal was really the starting right back, owned that position at least for Euro 2024, but now off the squad, not selected here. And that's it. Let's go on to injuries. So we had the previous injury list, which we will update there. So first of all, Mikel Merino, we had him as a close call. Out for foot surgery and expected back on June 1st. Actually came back a bit earlier. Returned for the last club game of the season on May 24th and played 28 minutes. Fitness, though, may be an issue for Mikel Merino, but he was selected, and so we have him as injury doubt, but still on the roster. He may, for example, not play the first game as he needs more recovery time. Next, we have unknown situation with Fabian Ruiz, unknown when we did part one, out with a knee injury. However, he returned on April 19th and is back to fitness. He has worked his way up to starting games. Or I mean, playing the whole 90 minutes. So Fabian Ruiz back and was selected. So we'll say he's recovered from injury. Next, we had Isco. Isco's situation was unknown. He was listed out with an ankle injury and an unknown return date when we did part one. He returned on April 21st, but has only worked up to playing a half of a game or 54 minutes of the last club game of the season. Probably needed a long recovery time because he's been out for so long, and it seems like this cup came too early for him. At this point, we don't know how strong a consideration he would have been. But we're going to say drop due to injury because I think he just never got the chance to show that he was a candidate for the squad, still in recovery. Next, we had Jesus Rodriguez, the possible but unlikely, like Isco, candidate who was out with a knee problem and an unknown return date. That turned out to be only missed one club game over that and was back playing immediately, though not as a starter. We don't think injury is the reason he was not selected. So we will just make a new category, not selected. Not selected. Again, we don't think his injury is the reason there. And my typing skills are failing me here. All right. Well, then we have out of contention Samu Agahawa. We knew that in part one. And cruciate ligament tear, not due back until October 2026. And then there was no change in that prognosis. And October 31st is actually his return date. So the end of October for Samu Agahawa. So we will say dropped due to injury, Agahawa. And then one new injury, Fermin Lopez, the possible central midfielder. Out of contention with a metatarsal fracture. The metatarsal bone is in the foot. That was right at the end of the season from around May 20th. He's not due back until July 31st. But frankly, we don't think that was the reason he was not selected. He was just at the possible level anyway. Mind you, he was used in the first of the March games. Anyway, we're just going to say not selected for him. We really don't think injury was the main reason there. All right, well, closing thoughts on Spain. Well, a very strong squad. And the probably most interesting part is in the midfield, where we have a bunch of players returning from injuries. So are they going to take back over the players who've been deputizing for them? It probably looks like they will. Unfortunately, we had none of the pre-tournament games to look at to help us out with that. So I recommend you do that and see if Rodri and Fabian Ruiz and possibly Gavi are back in the starting lineup, or whether the other ones, Mikel Moreno, Zubamendi, Pedri, have either gained starting spots or are still deputizing. Defense, central defense, a bit interesting too, where form is really the question there. A couple of players who we considered likely were not selected in favor of a couple of players who were in good form. So we'll have to see there, if any, especially if any of the new players there, Eric Garcia especially, works his way into a starting position. All right, that's it for Spain here, part two. So we hope this podcast series helps you to enjoy the cup. We're actually not sure if we're going to continue after the World Cup, because honestly, we're not really getting the viewership we hope for. We've been doing it for 5 years now, but it's still costing us to do it. So we're going to reassess after the World Cup. But it would help us if you kind of let us know if you like the podcast. We really do think there is an audience who likes this level of a deep dive. But it's only reaching a small part of that audience. So if you could kind of help us spread it out and find out if there is an audience. If there isn't one, we should pack it in anyway. But I suspect there is one, and just they haven't discovered us. So if you can help us do that with subscribing, like buttons, commenting, blah, 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 that would be really wonderful. Thank you, and see you for our next team. We would like to thank Michael Foster and Pixabay for the wonderful music in this mediacast. The title of the piece used is Look to the Sky, Tribal Dance Beats Native American.